If you are working hard to grow your business but still feel like taxes, financial decisions, and disconnected advice are quietly draining your long-term wealth, this conversation is for you. Too many entrepreneurs focus only on making money without building a financial strategy that protects their future and creates freedom. Welcome to Biz Help for You, where passionate support and practical guidance help your business thrive. Today, we're talking about proactive tax planning, financial strategy, and why you need more than just someone to file paperwork once a year. Joining me today is Mike Milligan. In this conversation, we're discussing how you can stop operating with fragmented advice and start building a financial plan that supports both business success and personal freedom. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Candy, it's so good to be here to speak to your audience. I'm a pretty passionate guy around this topic, so looking forward to a lively conversation for their benefit.
It will be good. Of course, I love this type of topic too, finance and all the things. And a lot of people will find it, not as fun. However, it's important to understand all of these things. And so that's why I'm having this show today. And so I think with this conversation, they'll learn some tips. They don't have to understand it all themselves. But some of them probably don't understand the difference between tax planning and tax preparation. So I'd love for you first to even just talk about that distinction and why does it matter so much?
Well, tax planning is vastly. I mean, it's the difference between night and day. Tax preparation is what we do after the fact. Tax prep is. We have some tax filing deadlines in the United States, March 15th for business, April 15th for individuals. You can extend those out, if you're not organized enough. But everything from a tax prep standpoint is done as a historical document. You give 1099s or W-2s or profit and loss statements, maybe your payroll report if you're an entrepreneur, to your CPA tax preparer, and they're just taking numbers from one report and putting it on another tax form so you can reconcile if you owe more or you get some money back. That's tax prep. And it's what, in my estimation, 95% of small business owners do. That's what they do every year. Tax planning is something that is more proactive. It's something that begins when the tax year opens January 1st and it goes to December 31st. And it's what we do to try to intentionally use the structure and the loopholes which are inside the tax code as a way to benefit us, keep more of our hard-earned money so that we can then use it to grow our business and then help the communities we live in. And there's a lot of strategies on the tax planning standpoint that when you hear them for the first time and then you implement them, you realize that it's been that you've been giving money away to the IRS for years by not understanding the tax code. Katie, one thing I'd like to do is CPAs are business owners also, and I want to make one distinction. Right, they're not bad individuals. They are hardworking, most of the time overworked people who would love to do tax planning, but because of the nature of the hamster wheel they're on in their business, they don't have time to proactively do tax planning, especially if they have a very large practice. The amount of time it takes for them to do a return that, all the activity happened in the past, leaves them very little time to give proactive tax advice and do tax planning.
Well, and just having to keep up with the tax changes every year, there's always something that has changed. So they have to keep up on that as well as doing all of the tax returns, and people are filing extensions. So, it gets extended. So yes, I know plenty of people. We do everything up to that point. We do bookkeeping and payroll and sales tax and all the things, but we hand off to CPAs, but we know how much effort it takes them. So I appreciate your at least acknowledging. It's not that they don't want to help their clients, it's sometimes they just don't have that capacity.
And it's something that I've seen over and over again when I talk to CPAs. they when their tax year's over, then they got to go catch up on the tax law, take a vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do the deferred maintenance on their house that we get to do while they're doing taxes. And it's a system that is intentionally rigged. The IRS or the tax code is intentionally rigged for those who use it well to benefit from it, but those who don't understand it to be penalized by it. See, the tax code in most people's eyes, it's just a bill that I owe at the end of the year, right? With terms I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But when you understand, like, there are benefits in the tax code, like for purchasing automobiles for your business, for hosting meetings in your home, for having a family payroll system set up where you benefit, your children even while they're still minors, where you actually create structure in your business where you don't take 100% of the income for yourself. You actually create a payroll for yourself that then allows you to take the profits as distributions. See, that type of structure in a business is where people save a significant amount of money in taxes.
Well, and you were talking too about the tax person doing the things once a year too. And so a lot of entrepreneurs themselves are only thinking, well, I have to just meet with my CPA, give them the information once a year. I don't have to think about it most of the time. So why do you believe that this reactive mindset is costing business owners so much money over time?
Well, what business owners will typically have is they'll have a CPA that does their taxes. They'll have an attorney who drafted their formation. And then they'll have what they view as a financial planner on their key, right? But financial planners don't do tax planning. The majority of them don't. They say most of them, especially at the big companies, right? The Wall Street companies, they defer to the CPAs to do the tax planning, thinking that they're doing what's in the best interest of their clients. They're staying in their lane to be an investment person. And so a lot of people don't get to the tax planning because they assume that their team of experts around them, CPA, attorney, financial planner, are talking, communicating, and doing what's in their best interest. They have to, right? Because they're fiduciaries. And there's this whole fiduciary term that is thrown out that I'm always going to do what's in the best interest of my clients at all times, but it's on what I am licensed to do. And what's often true is most businesses build to create one-size-fits-all profit products, right? If I can make 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and I could do it over and over and over again, the Big Mac, I could sell billions and billions of burgers. Right. And it's the same thing with anything that a small business is doing. You have to realize that the product of having really good tax planning is to have a professional that is also a small business owner who understand all aspects of tax planning, retirement plans, investments, health insurance, benefits, and then even like what the legacy or the exit plan is like for your business. And when you combine all those together and you have routine meetings with that advisor who understands them all, then let the advisor be the quarterback or the coordinator for the CPA, the investments, and for the attorney. And then you're really going to end up having that person's job paid for by the savings you have from the biggest expense you're ever going to have in your life. And that expense is taxes.
Well, you use the word fiduciary. A lot of people don't really understand what that means. So what questions should they be asking of their financial professionals to make sure they're receiving general guidance and not just simply being sold products?
So the only legal agency that puts fiduciaries in place is the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay. The other thing, so that from a regulatory standpoint, unless you're financial professional is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, they're not by definition a fiduciary. But
Mhm.
the word fiduciary can be both a noun and a verb. It can
Mhm.
describe a person and describe an action. And there's a lot of people who are
Mhm.
not registered as fiduciaries who are by action act like fiduciaries.
Mhm.
And so, when you understand that a fiduciary can be a noun and a verb and where they can be registered, and then ask the right questions. How do you get compensated for working with me? Wherever the money flows, you will be able to see the intent on if it's a fiduciary, if they're acting just from a suitability standpoint, and if they're really doing what's in your best
Mhm.
interest.
Well, and when you have, people that are, like you said, you have an attorney, you have a CPA, you have a financial advisor. A lot of times, like you said, they don't talk to each other.
Uh-uh.
So how does a business owner maybe have all those advisors, but make sure that they're actually getting all of the wisdom from all of them that works well together too? Because I know sometimes a CPA might give advice on what they can do to save tax, where an attorney might be doing something to protect them. And those might be opposite each other too. You might have to pay more to have an entity and not save as much tax, but that's a wise thing to do often too. So it could be confusing. So can you maybe talk about how they can actually take the information from the different
I've
advisors
written,
and determine it, what's best?
yeah, so I've written a couple books on this topic specifically, right? I wrote a book called The One of a Kind Financial Plan. I've written a book that's coming out this summer called Retirement Deja Vu. And then I have another book coming out called Retirement Chi. But on top of the writings that I've done to put in publishing to sell on Amazon, I also teach. I'm an adjunct lecturer at Old Dominion University where I teach the basics of personal financial planning and business financial planning to individuals. I wish there was a magic bullet or a prescription drug that I can give a business owner that would just automatically make them wise enough to ask every question they have. But unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry hasn't come up with that magic pill yet. And so the only
Hmm.
prescription I have for being able to help business owners knowing what to ask, I have two prescriptions, is is get in a learning environment. Right. And so like my education work that I do through Old Dominion University is a learning environment. Okay. And
Hmm.
if you learn topics for the first time, you then can negotiate better with your professionals. Okay. And then so once
Hmm.
you're in a learning environment, the other one I like to say is get into a coaching environment where you have
Hmm.
maybe some other business owners around you where you can have like a mastermind almost. You have like a coach
Hmm.
leading your mastermind. And if you have
Hmm.
that, you then have some peers, right? And neither one of those, by the way, take it to, are an exhaustive amount of time. Like you can allocate, you know, 6 to 10 hours a year to educate yourself. Less
Hmm.
than a day, right? Less than a day. Where in a small business world, a small business owner's world, a 10-hour day is like a half day for some small business owners, to be honest with you. And then you've got the
Hmm.
mastermind, like this commitment to like on a monthly basis, we're going to have a 45-minute session together where we hear from an expert for 15 and then ask each other questions. But more importantly, is you got somebody you can talk to in that mastermind. And then the
Hmm.
last piece. So, like after this education side, the coaching side, then that whole idea with the planning piece, you're more equipped to know what to ask, what to do, what to bring to the equation when you're actually having those meetings. But see that when you're
Hmm.
equipped, right, with the knowledge, with peer groups to help you, and a written down plan that you can go back to, now you're equipped to be able to maximize the money you keep, right? Because, with taxes being the biggest expense, if we maximize it through a great tax planning meeting and ongoing meetings where you're keeping more of the money you make, and then you can go out as small business owners do, solve the problems that impact the communities you live in.
It's so valuable to have that education. And like I said, those coaches or being part of a mastermind, I've done all of that throughout my career too, and have found all of them have helpful information, whether it's, a coach who's been doing it for 20 years and can, help you understand things to do or things not to do, right? That's one reason I have this podcast too, is for experts like yourself to be here and share tips so people can learn from the advice that's being given even on the podcast. And then of course, mastermind, having that feedback from other business owners as well is really helpful. So I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because it is so important. But I did want to ask you too, I know that return on investment is something that business owners are often told that they need to be following. But you're saying that there's a return of investment instead. So how can business owners stop just looking at the numbers and start using profits to get personal freedom?
Profits, profits are ultimately what give us our time back. So we, as a business owner, I'm a business owner, right? I believe so much in tax planning and running a lean business where I reduce taxes the most. I moved the operations of our business from mainland to Puerto Rico. So I actually live in Puerto Rico. We're doing this podcast from Puerto Rico today, where I get the benefit of taking advantage of a loophole in the system called Act 60. It's a Puerto Rico law. But I also get to the benefit of living on the beach and going out for dinner a couple nights a week. But my tax rates, my total taxes went down by 29% of our profit. Now,
Wow.
if I can now, of that profit, right, not spend all of that savings that I made, but I can now start putting some toward an impact, right? Some to where I want to see those maybe in need or communities that are underserved. Like I want to get there and be an impact from there. I can divert some of that tax savings to that. Number two, I can save it, right? So that one day, in my 60s, which I'm not that far, I turned 50 this year. In my 60s, I can stop working and I can actually enjoy what I have saved. And then number three, what profit allows us to do is allows us to build a legacy, right? A legacy is often thought of as an inheritance, like what we leave to our family. But a legacy is so much more than an inheritance that's left behind. And then finally, the last piece of where profit matters is you cannot continue to serve the businesses that you solve problems for without a profit. And so, like for me, as a financial planner, somebody who speaks and encourages business owners to lower the biggest expenses they have in taxes, I do so because I want to drive more profit to them so that they can ultimately do more of the passion that they have, or have more passion for the business they have, because their future is well secured.
I agree with you so much on that too, because again, I mentioned we do bookkeeping and payroll and like a lot of the compliance things. So in the past, I've said, well, we'll get financial freedom by helping them understand their numbers, figure out cash flow issues or things like that too. But I've now said too, I want to give people time freedom as well and marry those two, because a lot of times, entrepreneurs started a business thinking they would have time freedom. They'd be able to have more time with family and then usually end up working so much more. Right. And so I'm right on the same page with you too, in terms of figuring out how they can improve their figures so they don't have to be doing all of the work in their business and having the overwhelm, exhaustion, things like that too. So it's so important what you're talking about too, is if you're already giving away more to the IRS than you need to, and you can reduce that and have that extra cash, then that's going to give you more financial freedom, and then therefore some extra time to do things that you really want to be able to do with your friends, family, and like you said, create that legacy. I want to also ask you, some of the entrepreneurs then who are listening are probably thinking, well, this sounds great, but there's so many different things I have to do. I have to figure out maybe having those advisors that I don't have yet. Maybe I have a CPA, but I don't have the other people you talked about. Or, I need to actually really start digging into my numbers and understanding what they mean, or, all the things to have that clarity and control. So if someone is feeling completely overwhelmed right now, hearing this conversation and knowing they need to make some changes, what's the first step that they really should take to start getting onto that path?
Yeah, number one is if you're already dealing with advisors, right? You already have maybe a team of people like CPA, maybe a financial advisor, and you still feel lost. You may have the wrong team, and that's something that is a realization, right? That it's kind of like being a small business owner who runs a business and them realizing that maybe the head of sales is not right for their sales division. So they replace that person, they fire them and move on. See, if you don't have clarity with your financial advice, your finances, yet you still have people who are supposed to bring that clarity, it may be time to replace them. And I say that with all due respect to people in the financial industry, but our job is not to bring complexity and confusion, is to bring simplicity and clarity. And so, so as an entrepreneur, you need to find another solution, right? That's kind of the first angle there. The second thing is, I think it goes back to this whole educate, coach, plan philosophy. And like if you don't know where to get that, I mean, like you could always reach out to our company and we can help guide you. And like, for instance, we work virtually with people. But if you as a business owner just feel like you need to work face to face with somebody who works on Main Street in your city, we have a collective, a group of people that are around the country that we can refer you to. But it starts with it starts with facing the facts. If it's so overwhelming, and you have people, that means you don't have the right people. You don't have clarity, because if you have profit and you don't have clarity, that means you probably have not maximized profit. That means you're running a good business, but there's profit leaking out the door. And what you need to have is more than likely just an audit. I don't mean a CPA audit. I mean just somebody who's a mentor or run very successful business, who could just look at your books and say, hey, this is where I see you could actually improve your current position. And those type of reputable, ethical companies exist who can do that. And it's just a matter of knowing where to go. I mean, starting with this podcast, if you're listening, this is a great starting resource for that. And then from there, it's a matter of just picking up the phone and executing from that standpoint.
Well, I think many times when people have started businesses, well, many of them didn't even intend to, it just, kind of happened. But they don't necessarily know the professionals. So, maybe they ask someone, who do you recommend? Or, maybe they just did a quick online search, but they don't know that they're not really giving them all the information because they don't know what to ask. So do you have any tips on questions, whether they're looking for like a business attorney or a financial advisor or a CPA, like some of those questions they should ask to make sure they're a good fit for their business?
Here's my primary advice for that, and then I'll list out several questions you should ask. Is if you are a small business owner and you are dealing with the employee of a company, somebody who signs the back of the check at the payroll time, who works 9 to 5, who takes 3 weeks vacation a year, you may not be working with the person who understands what you go through as a business owner. There are a lot of financial professionals, CPAs, financial planners, financial pros, small businesses who can help you, who understand that just because 5 o'clock hits doesn't mean it's time to stop working, because there's still stuff to do. So again, if you're working with professionals that turn the phone off at 5 o'clock every day, who are getting the W-2, signing the back of the check and not the front of the check, you don't have somebody who understands what you're doing. So if you feel like that person may still be servicing you, great. Here's some questions to ask. How do you get compensated? That's a An ethical person, a credentialized person, is always going to tell you how they get compensated. So ask, how do I get compensated? How do they get compensated? Number two, you want to ask really direct and clear. Do you have other clients like me? Right? Because if you are that person's biggest clients, your growth is limited by the expertise or the hunger of that advisor. And so ask them, do you have other clients like me? Am I your biggest client? And if they say, yes, you are my biggest client, you may have outgrown them. And then number three, ask them, this is one thing that I tell people all the time, especially business owners, is ask a financial professional if you could see their tax returns and their personal financial statement. They're asking you if you could see theirs, right? That literally one of the first things you do when you walk into an investment person, a financial person, or a tax preparer is they say, I need to see 2 years, the past 2 years of your tax returns, your investment statements, your 1099s, your W-2s. They ask to see all of it. And so you open yourself wide. You are financially naked to them, yet they are fully clothed. And you don't know if they're in debt. You don't know if they're financially sustainable. You have no clue. And you don't know if your business is what allows them to make their next payment going forward. And you don't want to work with somebody who's in a desperation mode financially. You want to work with somebody who is as successful, or at least heading in the same direction that you are heading as a business owner. And it's one of the things, Candy, that I get so fired up about in this industry is some of the best financial planners, some of the best CPAs, some of the best attorneys in the world are some of the brokest people in the world. They have no money, right? Because they're living paycheck to paycheck. We live in a world where those types of professionals should be financially secure. They have all the knowledge, all the financial knowledge, all the tax knowledge, they have all this knowledge, yet they don't put it to work for themselves. Yet they're advising other people who are solving problems, business owners, to do that. Business owners, find yourself a successful financial professional to work with, somebody who's not leveraged, leveraged to the T, where, that debt is not being paid for by somebody else, right? Make sure you are working with somebody who, if they don't get paid for 6 months, they're still going to be around, right? They're still going to be there, and who understands who you are.
That's a very interesting insight too. I've never heard someone say that, but it's true. Like you're saying, you're showing all your information to them. But I can imagine some of the surprised looks that you might get, if they ask that question too. But it's good.
Yeah, Katie, imagine being in a group of financial professionals. Like I speak in front of financial professionals around the country. Imagine being in that group, and I say to them in my first 5 minutes, if you don't have your personal financial plan in order, you don't deserve the right to deal with the hard workers in America who have saved or who are in the process of getting wealthy, because you have to be your primarily client. The number one client of Mike Milligan is One Oak Financial. It's my company. That's my number one client, because that is the most profitable business I've ever seen before. My business is the most profitable business. It's the one that pays the least amount of taxes that I know. It's because I manage with everything that I've learned from the tax code, from the investment world, to actually provide great benefits. That's why our company is a B Corp certified company, a benefit company that puts impact over profit. We have been named a great place to work with 100% satisfaction score from our employees year in over year, to be one of the 5,000 largest, or one of the 5,000 fastest growing small businesses in America.
Well, this has been a fabulous discussion. I'm sure people have been very intrigued to hear this conversation, and they probably want to learn more, but I know we're running to the end of the time we have together today. So I wanted to ask, number one, do you have an offer that you would like to share with them? And if they want more information from you, how can they contact you?
Well, I mean, coming on this podcast today has been such a treat. And so if anybody resonates with like the message, right, this kind of message of rebellion against the financial services industry, The financial services industry should do better. We should educate more. We should coach more. If you feel like, you as a listener feel like you need somebody who's going to be in your corner to educate and coach you, I would tell you just reach straight into my company, right? And go to my personal website to start, and then that will get you to all aspects of what I do. That website is MikeMilligan.com, MikeMilligan.com. And then I've written a couple books, The One of a Kind Financial Plan, that you can find on Amazon. Just The One of a Kind Financial Plan, search there, or search my name, Mike Milligan, Amazon, and you'll come up with all the books I've written. And then, Candy, for your listeners, if they reach out and schedule a call with me, I will send them a copy of the One of a Kind Financial Plan. That book is subtitled "Say Goodbye to One Size Fits All and Hello to What Really Works." I would love to send that out to your listeners so that they can understand more about my philosophy and how to break free from one size fits all into a world that gives them the ability to live a one-of-a-kind life.
Mhm. Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. And I want to thank you too, Mike, just for taking the time out to be here with me today and having this discussion. I know it's so important for people to really understand why you don't want to just see your CPA once a year and just hand them some numbers and leave it at that. So just talking about financial planning and kind of the tax things that they could be doing, just a quick overview was really insightful. So thank you so much. And to you, the listener, thank you for tuning into the show today. I hope this conversation helped you think differently about taxes, financial planning, and the importance of building a financial strategy that truly supports your goals, both personally and professionally. And if this episode brought you value, be sure to share it with another entrepreneur who could benefit from this conversation. And if you'd like to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guests and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.